Hi everybody, Todd Dammit Kerns here, today brought to you by Hanoi Musical Instruments, some of my favorite people in the entire world. Today, a very, very special guest, somebody who had a major impact on me coming up. He was the lead vocalist in a band called Hanoi Rocks that should have been and could have been one of the biggest bands on the planet. I've been very fortunate to play with the man on several occasions. This Zoom call, everybody calls these interviews, I just call them chats with my friends. So the quality is a little funky because he lives in the Finnish countryside, in Finland. So, but it's an amazing chat, and as you'll see with Michael, an endless energy, this guy. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, Michael Monroe.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, no rush. I'm here for you.
I love it.
We've been setting this up for a while. I'm happy to see you. It's great to see you.
You too, my friend. It has been a while. I was trying to do the math on that. It's been, well, I saw you at the Whiskey A Go-Go the last time you guys came to the U.S. Do you remember when that was? The last time you were in Los Angeles?
The last time we played in, was it 2015 or 16 or something?
Wow, that's a while ago now. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It was when we played in Vegas, and then we came to. Oh shit! Hang on. Let me get rid of the.
That's all right.
Email.
It's part of the. It lets people know this isn't staged or scripted.
That's easy. That's easy.
Exactly. Yeah.
That was a while ago. That was some years ago. I think it was 2016. We had the Blackout States album out.
Yeah.
That one we played with the Swedish band. What were they called? Hardcore Superstar.
Right. I think so.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
The previous time, Duff came to play. With us the previous time. That was great. Yeah. Too. And shit. I mean, it's been a really long time, and now with the COVID and everything, it's looking bad. Unfortunately, I mean, we were going to open for Guns N' Roses in London last year in May in London and Munich, and we had some, I think, in Portugal as well. We were supposed to open up for them, and we had a big summer. We had tons of festivals in England and Germany where I haven't had a chance to expand my aim outside of Finland and as much it must have been Finland, UK, and Japan, and now and not as big and not in a big way either. So that now that I have a new, fairly new manager, last few years we had Seven Webster, 7 p.m. management in England, and UTA, who also books Guns N' Roses, and great booking agency, and Silver Lining, great record label, who put out the latest album, One Man Gang.
Yeah.
So all this business stuff is set up really good, which I never had before. I've had good records and bands and stuff, but never had a great manager until now. Always had bad luck with that business side of things, so I never got to expand. That's why I'm still one of the best kept secrets in rock and roll.
You really are. You always have been, and I think it's actually such an important thing, because you can have really great quality an artist, people who are just like, this person has it, and if they get stuck into the machine and it's the wrong machine for them, we've all seen it a million times, and you're a perfect example of a guy who had every opportunity in the world. It just didn't seem to have the right people that kind of got it. You know what I mean? Like, got it.
That's right. Yeah. It's just so always the business just seems so phony and crazy, especially in America. I'd be happy to make it big, and of course I'll take the money if it is to come on my own terms.
Yeah.
The art comes first, the quality more than the quantity. So I decided after, I've been true to myself to a fault. We're starting with Not Faking It. The album, when they started advertising this, me as some, Michael Monroe, the brains behind Hanoi Rocks. And I didn't know they were going to pull the plug on the whole record when I said pull the commercial. I said, why did you change it? It's just like, I don't want people to think that Hanoi was calculated.
Right.
Michael Monroe, the real thing. He's not faking it. The brains behind Hanoi Rocks. And, I probably should have just let it go, but I felt like, oh God, it's just like ridiculous. It's like, so why didn't you show the commercial to me before you put it out there? It was like every Headbangers Ball, it was there, and I was like, I came back from Japan. I'm like, what the hell is this?
Oh God.
So then they said, oh, you don't like the commercials? I said, no, it's like Hanoi Rocks it was spontaneous. So,
Of course. Yeah.
so they were like, okay, you want us to pull it? I says, yeah. So, they pulled the plug on the whole album, and it could have sold millions. So everyone said, Michael, you're crazy. But I wanted to just be able to sleep at night and look at myself in the mirror with a clear conscience and, stay true to my heart. And I don't want to become a clown, And there were so many of these bands that came out, I don't want to say anything bad about them, but, the hair metal thing that I was associated with, I was blamed for.
Yeah. Responsible for somehow.
Yeah, that's what they say. But I mean, like Hanoi Rocks, there was some, I think it was Melody Maker or some paper in London. I once read an article where they said there's this resurgence of glam rock. The glam rock scene is happening in the West Coast of America, and apparently it was started by a band who don't even play glam rock, so to speak.
Yeah.
Which was meaning Hanoi Rocks, which is true. We defied all categories.
No.
And that was the whole thing about it. And, categories suck. They really just limit things. And the business, of course, the record companies want to encourage that. And they want to put things in the packages. Oh, this is heavy metal and this is grunge. And, and that limits music and kills creativity, because also then bands start to sound the same, and everyone wants to sound like the guy who made it, like the, copy it, like Nirvana.
Mm-hmm.
Were great. But, 200,000 bands tried to sound like them because someone came up with this grunge thing, this new thing, grunge.
Sure.
And so everybody was trying to sound like that to make it become famous and rich quick for the wrong reasons. And then the quality of the music and your art suffers that way. So it becomes... it becomes a joke, That's why fashions are never healthy.
I know.
So that's, everyone was, I just wanted to do my own thing and have everyone else do their own thing.
Yeah, but that was always sorry to cut you off.
Music, that's why music was better in the old days.
Well, that's always the sort
ahead.
of the misconception of Hanoi Rocks. And I'm speaking as a fan. I was a kid. I traded my London Calling vinyl for a copy of Back to Mystery City. Because a kid had Back to Mystery City. I'm like, dude, where did you get this? Because we'd heard the legend of Hanoi Rocks, and to me it was always sort of like when I'm talking about trading a Clash record, because my copy of London Calling was the Holy Grail. It was very important to me. But I was like I have to have this, but I think that when even like watching you guys do your encores, Alice Cooper. Train Kept a Rollin', Ramones, that's the stuff that I go, that's what the Hanoi Rocks' formula and chemistry is New York Dolls, or that sort of, it's more based in like punk rock and I suppose glitter rock to some degree. When they say glam rock, I always kind of veer towards what I would call 70s glitter rock.
The 70s. Yeah, we grew up around that time, the Faces and the Stones, and then they were doing. First band I saw live was Slade, and
Wow.
Slade in 72 in Finland, and the second band I saw was the Sweet Fanny Adams album, that tour, and I was like, wow. And they were really rocking then. And then Susie Quattro, and then I saw as well, they were played in Finland. Mark Bolan was in, and everyone, even the Stones were kind of a bit glammy, a little glitter and stuff. And we, at the time, there was no, the thing was, there wasn't that much, there's a lot of, like in the 70s when we started, there was a bunch of, apart from the James Dean kids, they were kind of crossed between Teddy Boys and skinheads. They were crazy. It's like everybody looked like Happy Days all of a sudden. Like
yeah, it is funny how that sort of UK Teddy Boy, like punk rockers who were really into like rockabilly 50s look style things.
Yeah,
really,
but they were like. Yeah, but it was totally in Finland. It was like I was still going to school, and it was like all of a sudden everybody, had their hair. They looked like that. And I was the only guy with the long hair in school. So, but then also there were a bunch of progressive rock bands, so really serious musicians who look like
Sure.
shit. They're greasy hair, jeans, and playing with their backs to the audience, 20-minute solos, you know, putting
Sure,
everybody to sleep and trying to say, oh, look, aren't I great? Kind of like, you know. And then we came out, you know, of course we want to look good, you know, we want to put on a good show, give people their money's worth. And the punk attitude, we're like a street gang. I mean, we started on the streets. We left Helsinki and moved to Stockholm, and we were homeless, you know. And except Andy had a girlfriend. He had a house.
It's always handy to have a girlfriend. Yeah.
What do you call a guitar player who broke up with his girlfriend? Homeless. Right?
Homeless, exactly.
Yeah. So me and Ashley and Sammy were on the streets in first half a year, and when we got a flat, I mean, I didn't need much to be happy. I just wanted to be a singer in a band, and once we got a flat, I was like, wow, the roof over my head, luxury, you know.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So then that kind of us together, sticking up for each other, and me and Sammy and Ashley, we really had that. We still have the bond, you know, and we were like a street gang. We went on stage. It was like life or death, and you know, an attack. And people were
absolutely,
like, you know. So that was the energy and the idea, and that's why I'm glad that Guns N' Roses, they got the point. You know, they were influenced by Hanoi in the right way. They took like the attitude, and their music was a bit heavier, kind of Aerosmith heavyish. Yeah. And they had a great attitude, and that's what, you know, Axl didn't give a shit about nothing. It was like,
no, wow. Still doesn't.
He still doesn't. And I love it, and I love that they're still around. And you know, Slash must be one of the greatest guitar players of all time. I'm so glad that he's so big, because he plays the right kind of guitar.
He does absolutely. I think that's, you know, it really kind of brings it all back for me, because I'm always fascinated, because you are such a talented, like, you could have just been a sax player, or just, you know, like a background guy if you wanted to. I mean, there's no possible way Michael Monroe could have been forced into the background. But what was it? Was the saxophone the first instrument you picked up, or was? No.
I came from a musical family. My grandfather was a cello player, and his father was a oboe player, who was actually had taken some theory lessons from John Sibelius, the great composer. John Sibelius was they were pen pals, and he had an oboe that belonged to Sibelius, and so his son on my mother's side, my great grandfather, and his son my grandfather was a cello player, who after the war he looked to be in the orchestra again, and they only had a bass players play, and double bass players.
Sure.
They didn't need a cello player, so he studied bass, and he did the first concerto for bass, I think, in the whole Scandinavia. My mother had it taped, and I have a CD of it too. And my mother plays piano from the notes. She's very musical, but my grandfather had told her that first you get a real profession, and then you can play as much as you like. Right. So she worked at the radio, but she's very musical. And my father was a radio announcer, for 40 years, the main speaker in the Finnish radio. And when I was young, there were only like 3 channels: the channel 1, channel 2, and the channel 3 was the Swedish channel, because Finland is the 2 languages here.
Sure.
Swedish and Finnish. And so, my mother made me take piano lessons when I was like 5, and then I was listening to classical music. But then I saw in 1970, when I was about 8 years old, I saw Black Sabbath on TV live in Paris.
Oh wow!
And I was like, "What is this?" And I saw like Ozzy Osbourne, his long hair, this crazy singer going wild on stage, and I was like, "Wow, that's amazing!" And the sound was powerful.
Sure,
This is something cool. It's like sinister and really it's like punk, really.
Yeah,
really strong. And I was like, I could do that. And then I realized music was music, so I could play down on the piano. I would go down, down, down. You know, so therefore, you know, this I could show the piano. This is the piano I had in my house.
Oh wow! You own it now in your own house.
Yeah. 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 There's my piano at my house, which I had when I was a kid.
Wow, that's so cool that you have that.
Yeah, I had it this summer. It was on my brother's place for a while, because his kid wanted to learn it, and I had it moved over here. But anyways, piano. When I realized rock and roll was music too, and then I saw documentaries they had on TV, like about the Stones and the whole history of rock. I got into Rolling Stones, and then I discovered Nazareth and
Oh yeah, yeah.
Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple.
Mm-hmm.
The first album I had, my father bought records for me and I had two older brothers, so we got records. He bought like Deep Purple Fireball.
Okay.
Is one of my. It was actually the first record. Well, the first album we got in the family was a Led Zeppelin 2, the second Led Zeppelin album.
It's my favorite
And
Led
I thought
Zeppelin
the
album.
band was all the people on the cover. Yeah. And they had the band, you know, had the crew from the Zeppelin, right? There's like maybe, 10 people there. And I thought that was the band, you know.
Yeah.
And then some girl with the white afro looking good. The girl was like looking at, I thought that was the singer.
Yeah.
But I love that record. And then we got Fireball, and then Alice Cooper, Love It to Death. My father bought this record. That was like, that blew my mind. And I was like, and Alice, the whole band, the way it looked, you know, that, to me, it was the perfect band. The back cover, the picture of the band in the back cover, and Alice looking all famished and his makeup and the husky voice and everything. I was like, wow, that's so cool. And it was just like the kind of guy, you know. And then I heard about his shows, you know, kind of show that your parents, you don't want to go and see that, the crazy Alice, you know, he's chopping up babies and gets hung on. They hang him, and you know, the guillotine came and everything. I got into you know, the other Killer was after that, and School's Out was great, and $1 Billion Babies. I was like, wow, what a masterpiece that album was.
Oh,
I was like,
100%.
Great music. I remember my mother used to say, he doesn't even sing, he's just screaming. I said, well, listen to the music nowadays. And I'm glad I don't have kids, because I would have to tell them if they were into like techno or something. I was like, God, you know, I listen to headphones. I would have, you know, Black Sabbath. I would listen to headphones with all the albums. I got my weekly allowance. I always went to buy the new Black Sabbath album whenever it came out. And first album I think I bought was either Deep Purple in Rock or Paranoid Black Sabbath. One of those was like one of the first ones I got with my own money. And put the headphones on, bass on full, you know. Master of Reality I got for my birthday. I remember that was it's an amazing sound, you know, that record. It's like soft. It really is like one of a kind. Was that the first time they tuned down? They did I think they tried that on that record, but it was just an incredible sound. And the first time I heard stereo, we didn't have stereo. I had one of those old radios that my mother had. We had a turntable. We used to listen to, you know, singles and records, and it was just mono through the old radio, one of those tube radios. And then there was one Christmas that actually a friend of mine in school had stereo at home, and he had Master of Reality. That's the first time I heard like woo woo, you know. Solo in, was it After Forever or?
Yeah, I think you're right.
It goes back and forth. I was like, wow, ping pong stereo. And it was funny and then I had Paranoid, and the solo in Paranoid in my mono player, it would pick one of the channels. So when the solo came, I would hear the other side, which was that distorted kind of. And I was like, oh, what a weird solo sound, you know. And then I realized that the other side of the stereo, the other channel played the melody, and the other one was just like that distorted sound. So when we got stereo one Christmas, my mother bought us a Philips stereo system. I was like, wow, we got stereo. I played, you know, I had Slade, Goodbye to Jane, or was it Merry Christmas? No, it wasn't Merry Christmas. It was I Won't Let It Happen Again. It was one of my first Slade singles, and Sweet was this Blockbuster or something.
Right.
And, yeah. And then I was listening to Paranoid in stereo, and I was like, oh, there's the melody of the soul. That was great. But yeah, my father, for buying us all those records, he probably just went to the store and said, what do kids listen to these days? And you know, they say, okay, Led Zeppelin, here's Deep Purple, and you know. But music was great back then. Black Sabbath, of course, that was the one I always insisted. And then Alice Cooper became my hero.
Right.
And that influence. Apart from then, I heard Little Richard and Rolling Stones and the rock and roll documentaries. I got into and Stones with Brian Jones. Two guitars, I thought was a thing. Or even though Deep Purple, I loved with John Lord was the
organ,
rocking keyboardist ever.
100%.
He's sound. Even in Machine Head, even in Smoke in the Water, when Richard Blackmore's sound is pretty light, right?
Yeah.
So it gets ballsy when the keyboard comes in. It was that's where the balls come in.
Totally.
So it's amazing because John Lord was like, oh, I'm glad I met him once, and
oh yeah,
yeah, it was a great. Yeah, I met him in. That's Whitesnake was playing. He was playing in Whitesnake in '83 when Hanoi Rocks played in the city of Turku, where I live nowadays.
Sure, yeah.
There's a festival called Ruis Rock, which is the oldest festival in Finland, and we played there in '83. And Whitesnake came. That was the famous stink bomb incident. And Razzle, drummer Razzle was always joking around, and he had all these, he had a bunch of stink bombs, for example, explosives and stuff. So the customs guys, they pulled us aside. Of course, they checked our shoes and everything. It's, "Oh, you guys bring any drugs?" He says, "Hey, you stupid jerks!" It's just like Razzle, So Razzle was kind of pissed off. He threw. I mean, the airport here is really quite small, and. One of them would have been enough. He had a handful of stink bombs. He threw them at the customs. So it's like the whole place is smelling like rotten eggs, And,
Oh, no.
Like horrible. And we were just leaving. And Whitesnake happened to arrive at the same time. So their management came to our management saying, Whitesnake got very upset about this attack. And I was, what? They think it was meant for them. It was meant for the customs people. So then they, well, in any case, we were just leaving. Coverdale came after Razzle. I was already in a cab, He came to the door. "Did you throw a stink bomb in here, man?" And Razzle was, "Oh, sorry, mate. No, it must be my socks. My socks." And then it was funny though. I mean, Coverdale was really obviously quite pleased with himself. As we were hanging at the bar, and he was like just standing there like that. And I was like, wow, it's amazing how somebody can be really into himself that much. It's fascinating. But he's, not to say anything bad, but then John Lord was great. Yeah, and Cozy Powell was also. We were sitting at the table, and it was like John Lord says, "Okay, yeah." He was, "All right. So tomorrow, guys, we're all gonna go, yeah, yeah." And Cozy Powell was a nice guy too, and he was playing drums then. But it had been raining, and their buses got stuck in the mud. But we were kind of. Well, I guess we thought that. What they did was they put the English thing. They put limiters on a mixing board, so we couldn't play.
Oh.
Other bands couldn't play nearly as loud as them. That was like an English trick.
Mm-hmm.
So we were like, But there was a love-hate thing with Coverdale and us. I think in Japan was it Lexington, Queens, that club, remember the bar there? Used to be in the 80s.
Sure, yeah.
Bands playing there. Yeah, so Hanoi I wasn't there, but apparently Hanoi was in one table and then Whitesnake at the other. And then Razzle had tried to set Coverdale's hair on fire or something. It was an incident.
Oh, no.
So there's a lot of hate thing.
That's anyway, so fascinating.
Yeah, that was rock and roll for me. And yeah. So then I got to Nazareth. I mean, Dammit Cafferty. I must say, I think Nazareth is one of those bands that should not continue without Dammit Cafferty.
It's weird, isn't it? It's weird. We're starting to get to an age, and it's interesting to talk about this with you. We're getting to an age now where we're seeing bands, the name will carry on with other people. You know what I mean? In some cases, with none of the original people, which is weird. But it's a fascinating thing because the band name becomes a brand. It'd be like Hanoi Rocks suddenly being some other guys. That would be really strange. Nobody wants to see that.
That would work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and when we did with Hanoi, there was a rebirth of Hanoi in 2000, which was when me and Andy McCoy got reacquainted in a new way and started creating something new.
Yeah.
And it was a rebirth. It wasn't a reunion, like doing one tour somewhere, cashing and making a lot of money and hating each other, and they say, "Okay, fuck you very much, and never see you again," and until the next reunion,
Yeah, exactly.
And never do that. It's like too many bands do it, and Hanoi. That's why I wanted to. I mean, Hanoi, when Razzle died and Sammy Alpha left in 1985, beginning of '85, I decided I wanted to preserve the band as it was. There should be one band that doesn't just do anything for the money and become a parody of itself. And the guys that were going to replace Sammy and Razzle was hard enough to replace. But Sammy leaving was also, it was only me and Nasty and left. So that would have been I didn't want the band to be presented that way to the world. I wanted to keep the memory of the way the band was. But the rebirth happened in the 2000s, and me and Andy started creating new stuff. And we didn't make 3 records of new material, and I thought it was great. There was a great freedom there, especially the second one. Well, I mean, the other members were changing. It wasn't really the band. It was just me and Andy and the other guys. Although the best lineup I think was when Connie Bloom and AC Christel were in from the Electric Boy, and then Lacko on the drums. So that was like the best lineup. But then it just got to a point where it wasn't fun anymore, and with Andy. It's getting into the old, you're nothing without me. That's just like, okay, well, I got a perfectly good solo career too. It's just not fun. Let's just put it to bed with the band's integrity intact. And the other reason was I also thought that we could have finished what we started in the States. And Andy was he was bullshitting me about being able to go to America. We went to promote the 12 Shots on the Rocks album, and they stopped him at the border and sent him back to Finland. He's got no business coming there. He's committed a felony of some kind, and I'm still not sure what it was, but he can't come to the States.
Oh,
so
boy.
All these years, I thought we were going to go to the States and get that going too. There's another one of my setbacks that I dedicated like 9 years to that, but it was a necessary phase, and we made some new music, and it was cool to be. I thought, okay, now all those costumes that I wore and stuff, like, you want to see glam, man, I even made had these LED lights with stars that I sewed in my pants, like on the side. There were like 6 on each leg, and I had 2 little batteries inside, and they were like flashing, but And I had a necklace with a star with the same LED light and earrings too. So when the lights were out on stage, I'd be like a flashing psychedelic kid, like they used to call me. But then I realized most of the time there's lights on stage, so you don't really see the flashing. So every 2 or 3 shows, I had to wash the pants, so I had to remove the stars and then sew them back again after I washed them. And so I was like, all the guys would go have a beer and go to sleep after the gig. I'll be up till 4 a.m. sewing my pants, in the hotel. And there was this great shop in Tokyo called Takenoko, which is like all this, I had the Dracula coat and with all this amazing stuff. So it was fun to be like, okay, you want to see glam, this is it. But then it got to a point where it wasn't fun anymore, and it just I didn't enjoy it anymore. And I thought, if this is it, then I said to Andy, let's just face it, it's not fun anymore. Let's do a couple of farewell tours, which we did in Japan and the UK, and then the last 8 shows in 6 days, which were like over 2-hour shows. There's a lot of singing I did in that 1 week. Yeah. And the last show was recorded and filmed for a DVD release in Japan, of course. But it was good. It was good. It was a necessary phase. But what's amazing, and before I forget to mention, is that now we've found the Oriental Beat album, the Hanoi Rocks' second album, which was incredibly badly mixed. This album.
Sure. Yeah. I always loved that record, but I know you've never been happy with the sound of it.
No, it was really poorly mixed, and it had the cover. It didn't even. It was complete like negligence. I don't realize why. We went there for the mixing, and the guy who did it totally wrong. He's admitted it himself, but also in the worst possible way, he screwed up the sound. It's like just like vocal and snare drum, and there's no kick drum, and there's no guitars. The guitars were the main thing about Hanoi, the 2 guitars. And we thought that the tapes were, when Guns N' Roses released the back catalog, and it was a suicide label in 1990 or so, 91 or something. So they released all the European albums, Bangkok Shock, Saigon Shakes, Hanoi Rocks, Oriental Beat, Self-Destruction Blues, and Back to Mysterious City, and All Those Wasted Years, the live album. And then we were planning to remix that, then we said, okay, let's remix Oriental Beat. And then the label head in Finland, the Hanoi Records that released them, said that the tapes had been sent to Germany to be remixed, and some producer was going to remix them, but then they never did. The guy disappeared, and the tapes were left. The original tapes, the multi-tracks, were missing.
What?
So, and that was the beef for all these years. Yeah. So we were not able to remix it. And then I started looking into it this summer, and I called somebody who used to work at the Johanna, and I said that, would it be possible that there was a mistake, that I can't believe that they would send the tapes to Germany, and they'd be like missing. So she said, try Universal Records. Universal owns all the Johanna material nowadays because the company doesn't exist anymore. So I called up Universal in Finland and I said, can you please check in your vaults if there's some Hanoi wheels there. So I just check out if there's the Oriental Beat album would exist. And if it says on the tapes at Vision Studios, London, then those would be the tapes. And they took a photo of them and sent it to me. There were the tapes. It was them. I found them, the multi-track tapes. So we digitized them, and we are now in the process of remixing that album.
Really?
And it's already sounding a million times. Finally, man, finally.
That's exciting. That's very exciting.
Yeah. And I mean, you can really hear what it wasn't, there's all this hoopla about the image, and there's a lot of, and drinking and drugs. And I mean, the whole thing is, I mean, so many bands thought it was all about partying and, chicks and sex, drugs, rock and roll, that cliche, which wasn't. We were really serious about the music, and it was like more like a punk attitude up against the world. And I never been with a group in my life, I can tell you that. It's like beyond my comprehension. I would never spend an intimate night with any stranger and have my baby and tell everybody, yeah, it was Michael Monroe. I'm finished, I guess to me that's normal. But I realized when I got to LA, I was like, people think that's abnormal. I'm a freak as a singer. But anyways, to me it was, and to us it was like the music, the songs, and the playing. I would never screw up a gig. Sometimes I had to do a gig on my own when the guys couldn't stand up. Well, Nasty was taped to a pole once at the Electric Ballroom, and he was in really bad shape, and the drumstick flew out of Rassel's hand and hit him in the head. It was like out cold. So they taped him up with gaffer tape the pole on stage, and he was still playing, but he could stand. So he was legless, but he was playing. But anyways, those guys would drink anybody under the table. But I didn't like drinking, but I had my own demons. But anyway, it was about the music, and the guitar playing was phenomenal at that time. That record we have now, it had the track listing. The album cover doesn't even have the names of the players. It just says Oriental Beat, Hanoi Rocks. And the back cover has the names of the songs, side A, side B, and no other information about the band. So it's like, we obviously didn't give a shit. And the first time, I mean, we had some rough mixes. I remember we were still living in Stockholm at the time. We were based in Stockholm before we finally moved to London permanently. But we were listening to the rough mixes, and we thought it sounded good. It's going to be great. And the guy went and mixed it himself, and I don't know what he was going for. Probably some kind of like what was happening at the time of New Romantic, Depeche Mode, or some Duran Duran or whatever. It wasn't even that good. Duran Duran would have sounded good.
Sure,
That was like just a horrible mix, and the guitar's like a motivating, that song. It has two guitar parts, but Andy has doubled. The other guitar he's doing almost exactly the same. And that guitar is on both sides, like mixed. And Nasty's guitar is somewhere, hardly audible, somewhere in the middle. And that now, when you hear Nasty's part on the left and Andy on the right, which is the way we mixed it now, it's like a different song. It's like that was the way it's supposed to be. Yeah, and the guitar playing, the weaving, as so to speak, it's like really Keith Richards, Ronnie Wood, level type of stuff, but with more like punky but it really is like I can say it's really like full weaving, and Andy's playing some amazing parts. Nasty's playing great sound, great touch. They were both amazing at the time. That was one of the best times in the band. 1981 we recorded, and it came out in 82. So this is like 40 years ago.
Yeah,
so,
crazy.
What people to hear is this. We're going to re-release it this year. Should come out, if not in the spring, in the fall at the latest. We're going to be released Oriental Beat in the way it should have been mixed originally. And so many years that I can imagine. I mean, that must have set us back for a year or two, and moving forward, having that album sound so shitty, because he had some great songs. And even the track listing now, I'm changing songs from, I'm taking two songs. I mean, Oriental Beat, that one of the strongest tracks on the album, the title track, was number 3 on the B side. And
right.
What was it? And it starts with Motivating. I took those two, and there's a song called No Law or Order, which is now a totally different song too, with a proper mix. So that's those two. I move on to the A side. So it's going to be like Oriental Beat and Motivating as the second song, and then No Lower Order, and then rest of the A side will be the same: Teen Angels, Outsiders, and Sweet Home Suburbia. And the B side will start with Motorcycle Baby, then Visitor, Don't Follow Me on Mars 2, Lightning Bob Blues, Devil Woman, which also, all these songs sound totally different. And then Fallen Star, the piano thing. Yeah. That's the only thing that really don't have to touch, the piano thing. Fallen Star, that's just piano and voice. But the rest of the songs have been remixed and they're already sounding, we're still working, but they're already sounding, it's like night and day. I can't wait for people to hear this, because there you can really tell what great guitar players and what great songwriting that band had. A really unique style.
That's really exciting. I mean, we've all been waiting for that. It's funny because but you say that because as a fan, I would never have been like judgmental of the sound of it. We just love the songs. It's like saying Raw Power, is not a great mix, and objectively, it's not a great mix. But it's so powerful as Raw Power. I don't ever want to hear it remixed. You know what I mean? But I'm really excited to hear this.
Me neither. Same here.
Yeah. Who wants to hear like a slick mix of Raw Power? I don't think that would work. But I would be very excited to hear Oriental Beat. I think Oriental Beat would be very much improved is not the right word.
This is like a vast improvement. It was a crime that it came out as it did back in the day, because it's mixed, it's just ruined in the worst possible way. And the thing was, I didn't finish saying that we were listening to the rough mixes on a cassette in Stockholm when we were, back from recording it, and we thought, it's going to be a great record. Then the next time we heard it was already pressed onto vinyl.
Oy.
And the test pressing that our manager brought to the studio, brought to a hotel when we were on tour, brought a record player into our hotel room, and we was, and I was like, well, I guess it sounds okay. We're like pretty hollow and empty, and really, the tom, and we're not using any samples. We're keeping the original sounds, but one of the hardest things to get a good sound on was the tom on like Motivating. I think the producer tom is tuned so tight. It's almost the rack tom is almost fatter than the floor tom.
Oh man!
And it sounds like and the producer clearly has tried to, when it starts in G with the first riff, I'm pretty sure he's tried to tune it to the note. It's incredible. And so, but I got Petri Myri, who's mixed and we recorded the last album, One Man Gang, with my band. He's mixed all the new Hanoi, all the Rebirth Hanoi albums, all my last 4 albums he's mixed, from Sensory Overdrive, Horns and Halos, and Blackout Stage. He's mixing it, and he's the best in the world to me, and we have a great chemistry, and it's really sounding so much like, now it's getting the sound that it deserves, and I can't wait for people to hear it, because you can really, the guitar player is phenomenal. It's like a completely new record, and like you said, some records, people are used to, and I would imagine people, at first, even Sammy was against changing the track listing, like, we keep it the same. I thought, maybe we should, but then I thought, it's crazy. it wasn't our decision; it was the producer who put the songs as, Motivating is a great second song. Oriental Beat starts the album. And to have Visitor and Don't Follow Me on Last 2, they're like B-side songs. They're different, they're cool, but they shouldn't be the second and third song of the album. So now, better late than never, truly better late than never. That's happening. Also for the, the plus side of, there's a positive side of Corona. It's like looking at old stuff, and my solo albums, Peace of Mind and Nights Are So Long, were released, remastered and released some years ago, and I was going to do the same with Life Gets You Dirty, and I listened to it, and I thought I really want to remix that album. So it's one of my solo albums, not that well known, but Life Gets You Dirty. It's got 13 songs, and it's got a lot of cool stuff, good songs, and the mix. But I was doing that like in a state of mind that I was working day and night. I wasn't sleeping at all,
Yeah.
And by the time I got the mix, my perspective wasn't quite right. So I'm listening to it. Well, how could I let this snare sound go by? How can it just has to be remixed. So I want to do it with Petri. That's the next project. project that I'm getting into in the studio after the Oriental Beat album is done.
Great.
So yeah,
that's
great
very
records,
exciting.
all good records. Yeah, and Demolition 23, I shouldn't even. Little Steven's been, promising to re-release that for 10 years now, and I think it's going to happen this year, hopefully.
Great.
Talking about this, I sent him the artwork, and I sent it to him, and it should happen this year. So good records, and I've always made, taken pride in making records, quality records, and and the only thorn on my side, of course, is the Jerusalem Slim catastrophe and that ill-fated.
Sure, yeah, but I mean, that's the interesting thing about your career is, you've had a nonstop output, which I think is really important. It seems like you have never stopped making music, and I think that's really exciting. What was it like? I always mean to ask you this: when you come from Helsinki, you go to Stockholm, you go to England, and then you're in the United States for a long time. You were here for New York City and all that for like 15, 16 years or something like that. I mean, what was that chapter of your life like? It's an interesting thing, because now that you're back not far from where you grew up, it's an interesting watching your journey, both musical and geographical, but I always wonder, like, because not to belay the point, but I think it's really interesting that you chose New York City, because Sammy Yaffa and I have talked a lot about the attraction to the New York City thing versus the Hollywood thing. And I think that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, it's a long story, coming from Finland, relocating to London with Hanoi. And because, when Little Steven came to produce, when I broke up Hanoi Rocks in '85, the beginning of '85, when Hanoi Rocks broke up, I moved in with Steve Baders, who was the only friend I had, and who was the supporting of me, saying, after Hanoi was, put to bed and put to its grave, I thought, I didn't know what I was going to do. Steve said, you have a solo career. I said, well, I can't really write. He said, yeah, you sure you can. And he was really supportive, and he made me. He said, so what would you rather be, Michael or Michael? I was Michael. In the first Hanoi album, it was supposed to be Michael Monroe. Said, yeah, that's a better name, better than Mike. Yeah, I never wanted to be Mike. It was just a nickname. But it was funny. Slash calls me Mike, and certain people from certain periods call me Mike, and I don't mind, of course, I don't mind. But on the record, he says Michael Monroe, of course, is the official name. I said, okay, yeah, and we got songs, and we made 3 demos to the CBS, because we were signed worldwide to CBS, and 2 Steps on the Move was the first album worldwide, and ended up being the last. We make demos for them, and I recorded "She's No Angel," the Heavy Metal Kids song, and the song "I Want to Be With You" with that's the Rurie's song. That "It's a Lie," which was Jimmy Zero had written. That Steve offered to Hanoi a long time ago, but Andy said, "Oh, I got a better one here." So now there's no stopping me doing that song. And we sang it with Steve, and that version is actually, it came out on the CD, double CD collection that came out in 2015.
Right.
That version is there with me and Steve singing it, because I re-recorded it for the Nights Are So Long album, but that wasn't as cool as me and Steve singing it on that demo. Little Steven came to produce Steve and in London that time, and then him and Steve, Little Steven and Steve. I was a big fan of the Voice of America album. It was really important to me.
I love
Little
that
Steven's
album.
Disciples of Soul, right? Yeah, it's one of the.
I just talked to Jean Beauvoir about that record the other day, actually.
Oh, cool! Yeah. I love Jean Beauvoir. He's a great guy.
Yeah,
great guy. So I saw them in London, and that was fantastic. So Steven came over to produce The Loss of a New Church, and Steve turned him on. He showed him the Boulevard of Broken Dreams Hanoi video, and Steven was like, "Oh, what's this band?" He loved it, and I said, "Well, we just broke up." And so Steven became my friend and was always very supportive from on, and he came to play on my demos, some 12-string acoustic, and sang some backing vocals, and then he was making the Sun City record. This Sun City.
Course. Yeah, that was a big deal. I know. Yeah, that was a big deal. I remember seeing that. Seeing that video and going, "Hey, that's Michael Monroe."
Yeah, it was a great honor to be a part of this. And Steven flew us over to the video. I mean, all the people that was on this, like Pat Benatar, Ron DMC, Reuben Blades, Clarence Clemens, Jimmy Cliff, George Clinton, Miles Davis,
Wow.
Bob Dylan, the Fat Boys, Peter Gabriel, Bob Geldof, Daryl Hall, Nona Hendricks. I was supposed to play sax on Nona Hendricks' tour. We became friends, but then the tour got canceled, and I'm still on her video playing Jean Beauvoir's solo in the song "I Need Love." I'm on the video miming to the solo at a subway station. I Need Love. Check out the video. It's a song I think she wrote it with Jean Beauvoir, and and he's doing I'm doing a solo and with a top hat and a burgundy velvet suit on a subway station, and then they shot me in there's like a scene in bed or something too with the guitar. But yeah, I'm like miming to the solo. But the tour never happened. But we became friends because of the Sun City project. So let's say Jimmy Cliff, Eddie Kendrick, of course, Darlene Love with Stanley Jordan, Linton Kwesi Johnson, Grandmaster Melly Mel, John Daryl Hall, Bonnie Raitt, Joey Ramone, Lou Reed, Keith Richards, Ronnie Wood, David Ruffin, Run DMC, Bruce Springsteen, of course, Ringo Starr, Zach Starkey, son, Pete Townsend, Tina B, Peter Wolf, Bobby Womack, and Bono and Bob Geldof. I remember when Bono came, we shot the video at the park, and all these Bruce Springsteen and Bono were there, and the cops had been told that Little Steven was filming a video, so they didn't realize. The word got out, and there's like it was like chaos. People were screaming, going crazy because these big stars were there, and I looked around and I said, I want to move to New York. This is my place, and this is the kind of thing I want to be part of. After that, nobody could play Sun City anymore with a clear conscience because they were making millions. They're getting paid silly money there, and they were supporting the racist government. So then, and Mandela was in jail, and I was going wild, and I was proud to be part of that. And I ain't gonna play Sun City. I don't care what you pay. We're rockers and rappers, united and strong. We're here to talk about South Africa. We don't like what's going on. There's a great making of Sun City video, and that can be found in YouTube as well. As you're interested, as people should check it out.
Oh yeah.
So that's when I started in New York. This was 1985. I moved to New York, and I settled in there in the end of '85, and I lived there the next 10 years. And I never was attracted to Hollywood. Well, the first time I saw the Hollywood sign when I was on my way to see Russell's dead body after they had fixed him up. I mean, I wasn't. Our tour manager was the one who recognized him, and he was never the same. He saw the smashed up. He was totally like unrecognizable when the accident had happened. But I was in a hotel with my ankle, so. I had an accident on stage, so that's what. And the reason we were taking a break because I did four shows with a broken ankle, and I went to get a second opinion. The first doctor didn't notice it was broken, so they said, you need to stop. I couldn't perform with a foot in a cast, and I don't know why we didn't go back to London, but the record label made a decision we should go to LA to do some press, and the next day the accident happened, and. So I saw the Hollywood sign on my way to, I didn't believe, I stayed, some days behind. Me and Andy, we stayed there for a few days, and I wanted to go and see after it was like I wasn't there, and it was just like a cold, wax doll put together in the morgue. But on the way there, I saw the Hollywood sign for the first time. But every time I see that sign, I get chills. I was like, and then the people I ran into was like incredibly like superficial and really like I said, are these people real? Really strange kind of. It's like I just couldn't relate to it. And then I don't like driving the car. I wouldn't want to. Well, I know I can drive, but I wouldn't trust myself driving too much. I mean, having to drive everywhere. I grew up in a city, and I like to be able to walk out on the street and go to, New York had to smell the streets, and I was living in Los Angeles block. It was cool. My first solo gig in America actually was at the Los Angeles block party in 1987. They had a 4th of July party. They blocked off the whole street, and they had a big flag. American flag, and it's Los Angeles, New York City, hanging in between the buildings and the stage underneath it. And I did a show there, and there was a couple other bands, and they had 2 days and nights like fireworks, total mayhem. And so, and I was on their good side. I was also their vice president was a big Bruce Springsteen fan. So there was a time when Bruce came to sing with Little Steven at Steven's show at the Ritz, And as I was leaving, the Angels were the vice president, this guy Teddy, and he's this other Angel, this guy John. They were sitting there at a bar and keeping the bar open. I said, "Hey, Mike, you're not going to leave without having a drink with us, right?" Said, "No, of course not." Twist my arm. So I said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, he just wanted to see when Bruce goes by." He knew that Bruce was going to walk by there as he was leaving because he was a big fan. So when Bruce came by, I'd met Bruce through Little Steven, of course, at the Sun City thing already too. So I said, Bruce was with Julian Phillips at the time still, the actress. They came by and I said, "Would you say hi to my friend?" He was a big, so Bruce is so nice, Of course, he talked to the vice president of the Hells Angels for at least half an hour at the bar. They were talking, and so after that, just like, "All right, Mike, whatever you need, just stick your head out the window, man." I was right across the street. I was on their good side. So I love New York and living there, and so Hollywood wasn't. I went there to record with the Guns N' Roses, and they invited me, to play on the record. We did the saxophone and harp on the Bad Obsession song and Use Your Illusion, and then I turned Axel on to Dead Boys because he hadn't heard the Dead Boys. He told me to. So anyway, so I made him a tape, and we were listening to it in his car. He said, "You heard I Need Fun?" And I said, "Well, I got to do this song and do it as a duet." I was, "Oh yeah." I said, "Can we make it so that it's dedicated to Steve?" Yeah. So he was planning to even make a video for it, but they didn't. But it was the first single of that record.
That's right.
So I was so glad. So millions of their fans could see In Memory of Steve Baders. So all I asked for. I had a useless manager, the same idiot who was managing Dammit me who was just totally useless. During the Steve Stevens collaboration, he did not do what I told him, and I told him to stop the project, already, before we got to LA. I was like, "This record's not mine anymore. It's going right to hell." He didn't want to hear about it. He said, "Oh, no, it's going to be all right." And Steve didn't want to hear about, I said, "Steve, this is not my record anymore. I'm, Michael Wagner is ruining it. It's like this producer, heavy metal, totally wrong. I wanted Little Steven to produce it originally, but the record label wouldn't go for it." Steve was like, "Oh, don't bother me, man. I want to do my guitar." So he was lying, Wagner, of course, because he was like totally loving his noodling million notes a second wizard. I says, "Look, you can't polish a turd. If the song sucks, no matter how great you play a solo, it's not going to work. And I hate this record. I'm never going to, we'll never even play live with that band." And the best thing was in the mixing part, all of a sudden Steve comes to me, "Hey, Michael, Wagner's mixing it all wrong." What? I thought, "At least I thought you guys knew something I didn't know." That, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I knew this was going to be a piece of shit from the beginning. And my A&R guy was in New York. So I had this California A&R guy from Polygram that came over to the studio, and of course they played a couple of songs to him. I was like, "Well, what's your problem, Michael? It sounds great." I was like, I was going crazy. I was like, "Oh my God, it's the worst nightmare." He and Steve started replacing Sammy Alpha's bass. I was like, "What is wrong with you?" It's like anal retentive. Who wants to replace Sammy Alpha's bass, the best bass player in rock and roll? What the
100%.
So it was a night. Yes. So I was off the subject. This manager was saying like, "Okay, Michael, now he's going to negotiate a deal about that Guns N' Roses collaboration." And so you stay the hell away from this. Not gonna, because a lot of the old bands, some of them, they were getting greedy, because Guns N' Roses were. I just wanted to make sure that Cheetah Chrome got his share of the money, and he got. Sure. I think, as far as I understood, he was like sleeping on the streets in New York, and this was like he wrote that song with Peter Lafner. So I wanted to make sure he got his money and he got his life together because of that. It really helped him out at that time because he was in bad shape, and that was important to me. And I said, "I don't want any money. I just want my if you could write on the record in the credits to the song, it says In Memory of Steve Baders, and just spell my name right." That's all I asked for. So I thought, the main thing was that they put the album. If my manager would have started negotiating, "Oh, Michael wants a point or this or that," then they might say, "Okay, he's getting greedy. Maybe we shouldn't put the song on the album."
Right.
I didn't want it was so important to me. And once again, people say, "Are you crazy? You could have made a lot of money." It's just like, it would have put a bad taste on it, So if they didn't choose, it was up to them, If they would have said, "Okay, Michael, we want to give you a point," then I would say, "Yes, thank you, I will have it." Other than that, I just didn't want to make a fuss. I was just so pleased that they were making that song and putting Steve's name on the record, and of course, nice to have my name there too. Honor and the glory before the greedy,
and handing Cheetah Chrome another lease on life. You know what I mean? Like Cheetah really rebuilt his entire life around that that
right.
that record.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a shame.
He may not be with us. He may not be with us today if he didn't have that happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that is something. That is a big thing. That is a big deal. And we saw him in Texas when we were in 2010. We did South by Southwest. We played there, and it was he was there, and he was in such great shape.
Yeah.
He's such a great guy. He's loved cheated to death, and he came to play. Ain't nothing to do with us. All right, yeah, man. He's such a great character, and and Steve lives through him too, and they were.
100%.
It's just great honor, and so I was happy, so glad to be able to, because they had been ripped off and everything, and their manager. So I wanted to make sure that no manager from the past would come and trying to, because people get greedy with the money and everything, and it just makes me sick. I mean, it's really puts a bad taste on things. Of course, I haven't made it easy on myself. I must say, I admit it hasn't been an easy road all these years, and coming through. And starting from Finland, when we started out here, no bands left Finland because they didn't think it was possible to leave Finland and make a career abroad, an international career. And people were just like, "Excuse me for existing, what am I? I don't even speak the language." We were just like, "Fuck yeah, we want to get out of Finland. Let's go as far as possible out of Scandinavia." Because I was afraid I didn't want to become famous in Finland because I was afraid we were going to get stuck here.
Right.
So it's a long way to go, and they didn't even let. 77, I think they were trying to. Sex Pistols was supposed to play in Finland. They were booked to play here, and the government wouldn't let them into the country.
Right.
It was like Russia here,
Yeah.
So it's us leaving here and just throwing ourselves into the streets of Stockholm. At least in Stockholm, you didn't get beaten up by gangs of James Dean kids or just these fucking teddy boy whatever. James Dean kids were called. They're like greasers, and some of them are skinheads. They were just really like people got killed and stuff. So we were, we just left and went to Stockholm. At least there you could look like you had, there was more international. It was more international, sort of. You could look like you didn't get beat up for the way you looked. But,
right.
Started out in the streets. Started out with nothing, and I still got a bit left. I still got most of it left.
Exactly. So let me ask you this. I don't want to drag it on for too long because I don't want to. The next thing will be going like hour 3.
People get tired of listening to. I'm sure people get tired of listening to. I don't want to overstay my welcome either.
Never. But so your return to Finland. What was the instigator for you? I mean, I know that turned into a Hanoi Rocks rebirth and all that, but
that came after. I came to Finland when I was, after the, with Not Faking It, the album was actually went over budget, and I had, I probably ended up, since the commercial was pulled and they pulled a plug on the album, and I had my manager at the time. We got separated because it was a crazy situation, and I even had a deal. I mean, my lawyer had made a deal for 5 years with this guy, and he was going crazy. I could have made millions out of you. And, I had just played 2 tours in Japan, and I had a few 100,000 out that I made out of that. I remember in Finnish marks, it was $1 million. I was a millionaire for a week in Finland. Finnish money.
That's
and
great.
Then my lawyer, so he said we had normally a lawyer should have made a deal for a year test period. And normally also, no manager should get money on top of the whole thing. There's, these days, the fair deal is after expenses. And the other thing was he had received the money directly to his account, which was, breach of contract. But anyways, he kept the money. He took, whatever, 300,000, whatever I had. I was all my money. So I was broke. So, but I started over. I thought the Steve Stevens thing could, and then of course it was really through the record label, it was good on paper, and it was like, and we thought this is going to be great, and I was going for the band thing and put everything into it, but then the wrong producer, and then Steve turning around, and all of a sudden, I mean, we made some great demos for a year, and the songs it was promising, but then in the studio it all went to shit. Besides, I'm not the only one who's done this too, apparently. Phil Suzanne, ask him about that, because after the record was destroyed, and Steve said to me, "Yeah, okay, let's start from scratch." Because he came to me at the mixing. I just finished that story. He came to me at the mixing saying, he's mixing it all wrong. He says, "No, wait a minute, it's been done all wrong from the beginning. It's recorded," and he just ripped the soul out of that record, And even the drummer, who was a great drummer, Greg Ellis, who was a great drummer. He was like, "Oh, play this. I want to play that." And play, everything was like, it became like it wasn't a band thing at all. And then, in the end, he agreed that okay, it's a shit record. Nobody's gonna love it. Nobody's going to like it, and let's start from scratch. So we went to New York, and he agreed that we're going to do it again and do it 2 guitars. That we were supposed to have 2 guitars from the beginning, and was the idea, which he probably never had any intention to do that, even though he knows I like 2-guitar rock. And it was supposed to be that, but on the demos we had 2 guitars happening in air, but in the studio they started doubling and quadrupling the same part, when it just gets washed out and noodly. I mean, Steve is such a great player. The first couple of solos, he'd like try out. I was like, "That's it, it's there." And Wagner would say, "Oh no, just to EQ you a little bit more." I was like, "What?" And then it'd be like 10 tracks of shit, fucking overdoing that, a million notes a second. And then I was like, "Okay, are we done now?" No, now we do a comp. Oh, now you got to combine all the. And I was like going crazy. The 3 months of guitar hell in LA. So in the end, I already owed like 2008, 280,000. I think I was in the hole polygram already then. At the end of this, even though I tried to stop it at about 300,000, the A&R guy in LA was like, "Hey, no, it's gonna be cool." So I was like, "Okay, you want to wait till we spend another 300,000 and then realize it's a piece of shit?" So as it turned out, it was 700,000 that the record cost. And so, not faking it, I ended up owning that record label $1 million, and it was my deal. I was left holding a bag of shit, so I had to get rid of that deal for a year. It took me over a year to get rid of the deal, because otherwise I would have to earn. I wouldn't see a cent until I earned $1 million.
Yeah.
And I was like, God, I'm starting to realize how the Billy Idol records cost $1 million or something.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's other reasons, but I was like, how do you spend $1 million on a record and it's a piece of shit? I was like, it was the worst thing that ever happened to me. So I had no business. And my name already, me making demands like, "Don't advertise me as the brains behind Hanoi Rocks," So I thought this was going to save me. This is a catastrophe. The record label, they're like, I was just praying to get dropped, because it was I had a big worldwide deal for 6 or 7 albums. And so I was in trouble. And I had to now, at least, it took me about a year until they dropped me. My lawyer called me one day and said, "Michael, they dropped you." I was, "Oh, that's too bad." I was like, "Yippee, yippee."
Yeah, exactly.
So I said to little Steven, I called little Steven, I said, "Hey, Steven, they dropped me. I'm free." Just, "Well, Michael, isn't it great? One day you owe them $1 million, and the next day you don't." I said, "Yeah, thank God for that." So then we did the Demolition 23 album, and I thought, at least now little Steven's going to produce his record. And, we didn't have much of a budget, but Steven helped me from the beginning. We did those shows at the Grand in 1993. Did like 10 weeks of Michael Monroe and Friends live at the Grand, where we showed like vintage videos till midnight, all night, like all these Dolls and Stooges and Slade, Alice Cooper, and all this cool stuff from the 60s, 70s, and at midnight my band came on and we played like punk stuff, great sets from the Ruts, the UK subs, to Alice, Hanoi stuff. And that band became Demolition 23 with Jimmy Clark on drums, Jay Henning on guitar, Sammy Alpha on bass, and me singing. And we had guests every week. There was like the first gig was Joey Ramone came to do like 3 songs of the Ramones.
Wow.
Then we had Ian Hunter came one week. It was Monday. Monday was the hardest day in the week, but still we had Ian Hunter came one Monday. We played. We did Roll Away the Stone. Once Bitten, Twice Shy, Roll Away the Stone, and All the Young Dudes, of course. And then, Joey, we did Blitzkrieg Bop. We did Wanna Be Sedated, and Sheena is a Punk Rocker.
Nice.
And, every week there's a guest, a surprise guest. Corey Clark, Sebastian Bach came a couple of times. He was there.
Sure.
And Bobby Steele from the Misfits. There's a couple of Misfits songs. And, what was that, a guest? Walter Lior came. We did those songs. I mean, the Heartbreakers, Born to Lose, and Chinese Rocks, and
Sure.
and I think All by Myself or something like that. And it was those 10 weeks were great at the Grand, and we were creating a scene in New York. That was the idea. And then we were writing songs for the Demolition 23 album, which was supposed to be a Michael Monroe album, but Steven always thought that I should have a band name. And
Sure.
Sammy came up with the name, and the Jerusalem Slim. Thank God it was. I mean, I suggested to the label when they said they were going to release it, I said, no, you can't release this. And of course, they're going to release it and make some money back out of it. They released it in Japan and Europe. And so I suggested, let's call it Michael Monroe Faking It. But they wouldn't go for it. So then they went for the Jerusalem Slim was a name that Sammy came up with. So it's pretty ballsy calling yourself Jesus, Jerusalem Slim.
Oh, yeah.
But at least there was a name for, so it wasn't me. So my name was not going to be in the mud because it was in the worst possible way. Although there was I took out the songs that I wanted to save, like, Dead Time Stories was going to be on it, which I wrote for in Steve's memory, but which ended up on the Demolition 23 album.
Sure.
And The Scum Lives On was already written then too. And by the way, I think that Jerusalem Slim version has in the middle section which says Ronald Reagan's already lived forever. Ronald Reagan, all the politicians, all the scum that lives forever. We had Donald Trump. We had Donald Trump as one of the names in there at that time.
Wow.
Yeah, but it didn't end up on the Demolition 23 album. There's a bunch of names like that aren't even there anymore. I think.
Of course, yeah.
But Ronald Reagan already lived forever. Nixon taught him all how to live forever. But anyway, so I took out some of those songs and we wrote that album and with little Steve and we went to the studio in '93 and that was one of the best albums in my career. I think Not Faking is one of the best ones in Demolition 23. That album and the band was going to be great. Unfortunately, we had problems with Jay Henning, the guitar player. He was run over by a car in Alphabet City and he was having a little trouble with gear. He was scoring there, and that was a problem. And then he was arrested. He couldn't leave the country. So at the last minute, we were going to do a European tour with Japan in the end of it. And I had to get somebody quickly. So Nasty, with a really short warning, we had like a half a day's rehearsals, and we played before the London show. Nasty, Sammy, and Jimmy Clark and me. But then during the tour, Nasty said he wants to join the band permanently, which I thought, okay, well, I'm going to say no because I had problems with Jay. But then, as it turned out, he left the band anyways. And so I got back to New York, didn't have a guitar player. I was broke. I tried this manager. I couldn't find a proper manager. At that time, actually, when the Demolition 23 album was finished, Slash called me and asked me to be his singer in his band. And I was like, oh, shit. That would have been so cool. I was like, shit, I just finished this Demolition 23 album. I'm going to start touring on it. And, oh, man, the worst timing. I was like, God, why? How can how can that be? And if I'd known the Demolition 23 was turned to shit, in the end, I couldn't, then, of course, I called Slash. And it had been a while. So, of course, he's already got a singer.
Right. Okay.
So that's the way it went. It's just like, life is choices, but life is also bad timings and bad luck at times. It's, things just don't work out. For me, I must say, I didn't have the best of luck. I don't want to wallow in self-pity, but I just like, why? Shit, it could have been. But if you keep looking at the past, you can't move forward. So therefore, but there was like a timing which it was never right. And I wish I could have been a great singer for him. I think.
Oh, of course. That would have been amazing.
That would have been great. So, however, it wasn't in the cards. So at the time, I was broke in New York. I was no guitar player, and I was like, I started getting really disillusioned and depressed. And I thought, no one's going to touch me because, there's the words out about the big Jerusalem Slim fiasco. And, surely I'm thinking, nobody, my reputation wasn't the greatest, I'm sure. And I had nobody to help me. I tried this one manager who was useless, and he didn't help out with the Demolition 23 situation at all. And I was kind of like, I had nothing. And I thought, I got to get out of this town. It's starting to eat up. It used to give me energy, and I was just like, I felt like, no, New York it really got nasty for me. I was really it was a real nightmare. It turned into a real nightmare. Yeah. I was totally broke, and I started, selling my stuff, including air conditioning. In the end, it was just like a worst possible decision in August, New York, without an air conditioning. Dead. So I was like, I had nothing. I was just. Sammy was still, he moved to New York, and he was there. And for that time, I thought it was, I could have continued, but it was. I had nothing to go for, and couldn't find a new guitar player for Demolition 23, and I was like, okay, that turned to shit too. I missed Slash's offer to, just the timing wasn't there. I had no one to go to, as nothing. I thought I gotta get out of this city. I was going to move to London. Then I thought, I was talking to my brother who lived in the country in Finland, and I always envied him in a way because he built himself a house in the country near the summer house I used to spend my summers in when I was a kid. And I thought, that could be cool to start over, go to Finland and live off the land, have my own well with water and my own well and my fresh air, and from one extreme to the other. Because I spent my summers in the country as a kid, and I learned to appreciate the nature. And I thought, I have my own house in the country. What could be cooler? Although I'd be right in the middle of nowhere. But I thought maybe I'm not meant to be the biggest name in the world. Maybe you don't have to always be the biggest and the most famous and the richest and I wasn't into the house in the Hollywood Hills. I was never gonna, of course, I would have loved to have stayed in New York. I would have loved to have a nice life there, but it just wasn't in the cards as it turned out. And
right,
I don't, I take responsibility for myself. But I thought, I'll start over in Finland. First winter. I came to the end of '96. I moved to Finland into this house, and I wrote songs with my late wife, Jude Wilder. She had also been writing songs with me, lyrics especially. So I wrote this album, Peace of Mind. I named it Peace of Mind, thinking that would, because, Demolition 23 was like, I thought maybe I'm manifesting this bad luck, with nothing's all right, scum lives on, ain't nothing to do, all these titles, the same shit, different day, and dysfunctional. And it's like, maybe I'm being too negative or something. I'm calling my own Peace of Mind. And little did I know, I had that came out in Finland and in Japan. I negotiated a deal in Japan myself. And I toured, I did some gigs, some festivals in the summer, and I made good money the first summer in Finland. But then you're not, after you live in Finland, your value goes down after all. Oh, he's here now. So it was nothing special. So the next summer it was like, it wasn't like, oh, Michael Monroe wasn't such a big deal because he lives in Finland now.
Right.
I was like, and the house I had turned out there was a big mold problem there. And Judy was starting to, there was like the mold is like, it's like a national disease here. Not anymore as much, but it used to be this, all these old houses. The house had been empty for 20 years and there was like water underneath it, and it was like really bad. Judy was getting this really bad reaction to the mold, and she was starting to mentally get unstable. She was starting to freak out. And it's like, if you want to test a relationship, go live in the country in the middle of nowhere for a year. Or people say you should take a trip with someone.
Yeah.
Together in the middle of nowhere. I thought I was there in the middle of nowhere. I was driving. We had a car, which Judy had a driver's license. She used to drive when she was getting sick. I drove the car too, and I would drive to the studio and stuff. And I became a criminal. I got arrested for driving without a license, and I was, busted a few times for speeding, and it was just a crazy time, and but it wasn't the internet. Internet was just starting. I didn't have internet. I didn't have nothing. I was just really all alone in the middle of nowhere. At first, it was refreshing. I was making these snowmen. There was so much snow the first winter. I was like making these big snowmen in my driveway. I was like, looked like the Valley of the Kings in Egypt. There was one guy who was like sitting like this, reading a newspaper by the mailbox on the other side of the mailbox. And I remember the mailman going by in his car one time and stopped, looked at the windows, like, what the hell? and I made these lanterns, these ice lanterns, man. This big bucket of water outside, and then let it freeze to a point where it has the hole in the middle. It still had like it's hollow in the middle, and then you put a candle in there. You put it out there. I put in between the snowmen. I had all these lanterns. It was magical at night. And all these fire lights. I was like, it was beautiful. I was tripping in this beauty and this silence, and there's a moonlight at night. There was some beautiful moments there. I was loving it. I was like, wow. This is amazing. It's beautiful. And the summer in Finland is beautiful. It's too short, but it's beautiful. And there was really so much snow. And the first winter was great. But then I had a mold in the house, and I had no money. I was like, oh, fucking hell. And I was homeless for a couple of months because we had to get out of the house.
Oh, no.
And then I found another house and even further into the woods, which was really a summer house. So it was kind of cold, but we went there. And I remember when I did go and play in Japan, I did some tour there. They released a compilation called Bloody Knuckles and Lipstick, I named it, with Hanoi, different bands making covers of Hanoi songs. And I went. They asked me to go and play there and jam with the local bands, and I had to miss my flight because the road was not plowed. It was a snowstorm, so I couldn't get out of the house. I had to call the airline and tell them, look, I have no right to cancel my flight, but look, if you knew where I live, I can't get out of here. I really, luckily they gave me another ticket. So I got to Japan and I was there, and Bon Jovi was playing in town, and John invited me over to his hotel. We were label mates at the program. And he's a sweet guy, really really nice guy. And he invited me over to his hotel room, and I hung out there for a couple of hours, and he had a nice Four Seasons, he had a keyboard and everything. He was promoting that movie that he was making, that they're like a Navy the movie that he was acting. I was like, oh
Yeah,
wow, acting, it must be amazing. There's a lot of waiting around, isn't there? Oh, he doesn't mind, he loves it, and it's fun doing this Bon Jovi shows too, but he loved acting. I said, wow. But he says, well, I can't imagine living in the middle of woods in Finland in the cold, and not only the cold, but the dark in the middle of there. Like, I said, Mike, you're a more man than I am. I could never live there. I said, well, I guess I'm out of my freaking mind. I mean, but I must say, when I think back on it, it was kind of thinking of, I had to get, the second house was so far into the woods that I had to walk, like a couple of miles to get to my post box. I remember it was like 30 below Celsius. It was like minus 30, over minus 30. My eyelashes were frozen, like my eyebrows. It was like all frozen. I couldn't keep my eyes hardly open. And I had this mag light that I used to have. It froze. I used to see it in the dark. It froze. I'd be chopping wood. I even made a garage for my car out of snow, out there. In the middle of nowhere, in the dark. People think I'm living in Hollywood Hills with limo service and swimming pools and all this luxury and nice mansions and stuff. I'm in the middle of fucking nowhere, broke in Finland. That one winter, I swear, I saw the sun one time in the horizon. It was all dark, the whole 3 months of no light whatsoever. And, it was and no money. And like I had gigs with, I remember Backyard Babies in Tavastia in Helsinki, that club, and they asked me to come and get them. And I remember I hung out, I was doing like pull-ups, and then I hung in a bar, and all of a sudden it's like I couldn't move. My back was so bad, and I had to like roll onto I had like a futon couch, and I rolled on top of this. What the fuck am I gonna do? And then I found these tennis balls, that's like first aid. So got my back to sort of, I can make it. And they were gonna pay me like something like 1,000 marks. It was Finnish marks. That was back then before euros. So that's like a 1,000 euros. I mean, 1,000 marks, not much at all. It's a couple of €100. Anyways, okay. I needed the money, so I was going to go to Helsinki, Tavasti, to play do 3 songs with them, and they had the total 13. They had their album, and we did that song, Rocker. That turned out pretty good. I played, sax and harp on that, and anyway, so we did Taxi Driver with 3 songs. And it's 13. I dove into the audience, and I came back, and there's a little pit for the photographers. I landed there trying to avoid stepping on one of the photographers' foot. I twisted my ankle, and I broke it almost in the same place where I broke it at the Hanoi tour in '84, but it was like right next to it. Sometimes when the bone heals, it's susceptible to getting broken next to the old healing part, old healed part. So I broke my ankle at the show, and I was like, I didn't know that it was broken. It was like I could hardly walk on it. But I got into my car, and I started driving, and the cops were after me, and they pulled me over at the gas station, and I had a little piece of hash in my pocket, and I was like, oh my God! They came with the flashlights, and they had guns out of the car. And I don't know what, if somebody ratted on me or something, because I had no license, but they pulled me out of the car. It's just no sudden moves. And I was like, oh shit, that's bad. I was trying to throw the hash away. They said, they picked it up. And I was like, oh fuck, I'm arrested. I have my broken ankle. And I had spent the night in jail with the broken ankle in Annie. And then the next day, I was like, they took me to the police station. I was outside the city. A little outside the city, and then they moved it to the center of the city, to the cop station. I was sitting there, For 2 or 3 hours, they kept me waiting. I was like, look, my ankle is really, like, I think it's broken. It was a two-way mirror. I was like knocking on it. Could somebody do something, please? They were going to question me. So I was like, I think my ankle's broken. I need to get to a hospital, man. I've been, in agony all night. So can somebody do something? So then, okay, let's see. Then the guy comes up and says, all right, up there, come up to the room. Then the woman who was questioning me was like, that was her first day at work, and she was really green. So she shouldn't have left me out of her sight for 1 minute. There's a word processor that wasn't working. So she was like printing this paper and trying to print this paper out. And she was like, okay, so they had the little bag with the hash on the table. And she, asking me all these questions. And she's, okay, look, I can't get this to work. Don't move. I'll be back in 2 seconds. So she left me there. And I said, okay, let's see what they do if I eat the evidence. I took the bag and swallowed it. And then she comes back and she's like, she didn't notice anything. So they're like letting me go. Okay, I'm gonna get fined and stuff. And I was limping. I was getting out of there. I was just like, and almost out the door, the guy goes, "Hey, yo, come back here." I was, what is it? Oh, you know what I'm talking about. No, what did you say? And then they took me back to the room, and the girl is freaking out. She's thinking she's gonna get fired. It's her first day. What? I saw it here. It was here. It was right here. But now it's. What did you do with it? I said, oh, nothing. And then I was like, well, no, okay, we're gonna take you back to the other station. You're gonna get strip search and stuff. I was like, okay, never mind. All right, okay. I threw out the window. And they're like, what? The window doesn't open. Okay, I fucking swallowed it. All right. There's, oh, well, that's pretty stupid. You're gonna you're just gonna get yourself a more. They're gonna charge you more of a fine for obstructing police work. I said, okay, well. That's going to look bad in court, man. Well, it's already pretty bad. And I think this might look pretty good in my biography. When I make my autobiography one day, this might be a cool story. I said, and it is in my autobiography, which is only out in Finnish right now at the moment. But I'm working on getting it translated into English. But the story continued. So I left my car and everything. I get back into my house when I finally had a friend of mine drive me back to my house. With a broken, they took me, I finally got out of the police station, went to the hospital. They said the ankle's broken. You need a cast. Okay, so the cast in there. I called a friend of mine who drove me to the country, to my house. The next morning, they had this sewer system when the water starts, there's like a well in the backyard where all the water goes, all the bad water, dirty water goes out of there. The plumbing, so when that is full, the water comes up in the sink, and the next morning I'm limping onto the kitchen. I was like, the water starts coming up, the fucking sewer is full. There's like 3 meters of snow. There's a guy called the shit sucker, guy with the tractor with the big tank, the shit sucker. My favorite guy would have to come back to the back of the house and empty the sewerage, so I could use my sink. So I had to get up 9 a.m. The guy says, okay, I'll come over the next day in the morning. Okay, great. So I'm like shoveling snow 3 hours, hopping on 1 foot, shoveling the snow there, making way for the tractor to be able to come to the back of the house to empty the sewer. So that was like, at that point, I was going, God, what have I done? The rock and roll singer, for Christ's sakes. Oh, boy. So that was the start of my life here. And but then, I wrote songs. I made the Life Gets You Dirty album. And then I ran into Andy in 2000, but there was a record release party for a 4 CD box set of Hanoi. And me and Andy started getting, I met him and he seemed like, he had fallen off the balcony.
Yes, I remember that.
So, yeah, and it was a miracle he survived, let alone that he could walk. I mean, he couldn't walk at first, but he started, he worked, most of his other leg is like titanium.
Amazing.
He could still walk, and but he seemed like he wasn't, in the skag anymore, and he seemed like it was cool to connect with him, because in the 80s, we kind of got separated in a way that we weren't connecting anymore at a certain point, and it was like, he always had his, some kind of, mask or some protective shield around him, and I couldn't really get through to him. So he was more open. And then my wife passed away. She had hemorrhage, and that.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Yeah. So I was like, what am I going to do? And I thought, well, maybe I'll start. We had been planning to do a Hanoi Revisited gig with Andy, with playing a one show, two festivals, play one gig, not Hanoi Rocks, Hanoi Revisited, playing all those Hanoi songs. Since we started getting along, and we had some old ideas too and stuff that we had left off. So I thought, it'd be interesting to work with him. And I wanted to just work, and not to get my mind off the devastation and the grief of losing my wife.
Sure.
And that was the summer of 2001. And then, I went further, and I just, thought, well, maybe we'll make a record. We started writing some new songs, and Monroe, McCoy, or whatever. And then at one point I thought, well, maybe if we called it Hanoi Rocks. And I called it Reagan. I said, what do you think? It'd be like cheating if I called it Hanoi Rocks? Because, it's not the same. But, me and Andy came up with the name, and it was our thing. And I thought, because the thought of a rebirth never occured to me. I mean, reunion I would never do just to play the old shit, but we're making some new stuff. The thing is being reborn. Yeah. So what if Reagan says, go for it, man, that'd be great. And I thought, so then I didn't feel, at first I felt bad and guilty. I swear I gave many months of thought, and I thought, Hanoi Rocks could be reborn. So, because this is real, this is really happening, and it's new stuff. So then it started. Then I decided to let's make an album and call it Hanoi Rocks. Of course, I was so devastated. I didn't care who came to take care of the business. So Andy's brother and this other guy, both, I must say, really didn't know one thing about. They had people on the payroll, but they're like there's like 25,000 euro overhead every month to people. I didn't even know what they were doing. It's like they pissed all the money away, and it was totally mishandled. And the worst thing was the 12 Shots on the Rocks would have been a great record at first, and they put us on tour before the album was finished. So the album came out in Finland and Japan with when we were on tour. It was we had released the People Like Me single. I had my What You Want album, which was going to be a solo album. I took like the 5 best songs of that album to put it on the Hanoi album, thinking that they would get more attention that way. So I thought, sure. So we chose them with Andy. So then I put some cover songs on the What You Want album, and I released that. And a lot of people liked that better than the Hanoi album at first. But see, the Hanoi album was this guy and his brother wanted to mix it, but without me there. And at least Petr was, the engineer, but it was not, at the end of the tour, they gave me a CD. Okay, here's the album. So what are you talking about? You finished the album without us there? Are you crazy? You can never get a second chance to make a first impression. And this is like, it was just bullshit. And then these people, of course, before too long, the whole company went bankrupt. And it was just me and Andy for a while. And we made we played in Japan. We did some touring in Finland and England. And went back into the studio and 3 songs and remixed the album, and then it came out in the States. And the cover had the rose, and it's the new version had the gold framer on the cover, the yellow framer on the cover. 12 Shots on the Rocks. That's the correct version, which was at least that came out in Japan. In Europe and in the US, but in Japan and Finland they had released the first version, which sucked compared to that. The mixing sucked. It was Andy's brother trying to play producer, and it was like another one of those things. But I was so devastated because of losing my late wife that I met these guys, and I remember the handshake. I was like, the first handshake, I thought this is not going to be good, but I couldn't. I was too tired to care, and I just wanted to work.
Sure. Yeah.
So that was a big setback, and then I went to promote the album, and it turned out Andy couldn't get to the States, but I didn't know that he kept saying, he's going to just work it out and he's going to be able to go there. But as it turned out, in the end, I found out years later that wasn't ever going to happen. But we did another Hostile Takeover album. It was pretty much me and Andy. I played a lot of on this album also. I played a lot of the guitars, and the Street Poetry album was with Connie Bloom and AC, and that's the most band at the album. And we put that to bed, and we 2009 finished that one, and then I restarted my solo career, and the best decision I ever made.
I agree.
I started getting all this. Sensory Overdrive album was chosen album of the year in the Classic Rock readers, Classic Rock magazine in London voted that as the album of the year, and also that was a great the award ceremony. Was Duff McKagan had this great speech. He changed. He was going to fly to South America, but he changed it to be able to present the award to me, and he had such a great. Me and Sammy were in tears. He had such a great story. He was saying how him and Slash last. They had tickets for the Hanoi show before Russell died, and they were going to go there. And then he was like, he choked up when he was talking about Russell dying. And it was such an amazing time. And everything, just talking about closing a door and opening a window. I mean, everything just like, I was invited to the annual ball at the President's Castle in Finland, you know, where the Independence Day in December, the 6th of December, you know, the previous president, this woman president who was the greatest president, I got to there and I started, you know, got all kinds of awards and recognition and you know, then did the Voice of Finland for six years in Finland, which is completely different from the Voice and in the countries when I did it. It's not the same anymore, but I was had a lot of rock and roll, a lot of like, you know, I had the singer was like Dan McCafferty. We did Razum and Naz, Welcome to the Jungle. He did rock and roll Led Zeppelin. I had this other singers. I had 4 Cheap Trick songs, and all the seasons I did because people don't know Cheap Trick in Finland. So I wanted to have them, you know, present Cheap Trick to them. You know, rock and roll Outlaw by Rose Tattoo on one of the Battle Live episodes. A lot of rock and roll, and it was great. I had a lot of fun doing it, and the kids loved me. I got new fans, like under 10-year-olds and old, you know, 80, 90-year-old ladies coming. Oh, we really like you, so positive. And the kids loved me because I was like a cartoon character, unpredictable. You never knew what was going to happen. I was going to, you know, press the button with my back of my forehead. I was like jumping all around. And I remember when David Hasselhoff came to Finland to his show, we met him. There was a TV series here. It was like started out in Finland. He was a guest on the episodes, and I did a cameo on one of the other episodes. And they were filming him at a karaoke bar in Helsinki, and we met for the first time, and he loved me. He was like, "Wow, Michael, it's like your energy." It's just, you know, they were doing a scene which was at the end of one of the episodes. They had the only time I've ever in my life I've sung karaoke was Highway to Hell with David Hasselhoff in a bar in Helsinki which was in there's a show. It was called Brandari, the Branders. It was the Finnish series. So I was, you know, leaping on a table and would sing Highway to Hell together with him. And he invited me on his show. He was doing Hasselhoff show, you know, a little later, like a year later or something in Helsinki, and he wanted to have me on every episode, but the producers wouldn't go for it. But he had interviewed, and he showed a clip of me at the Voice in Finland. I was like, there was a boring day, and I was like, come on, I want some action. I was like, come on, motherfucker, man. I was like, so Michael, what's happening here? And I was like, well, I was bored, you know, there were no good singers all day, and I was like, I want some action, man. And it was so much fun, and it was great because he didn't really know me that well at first, but it was funny because he probably assumed that I was good friends with Nicky Six or the Motley Crue guys. Because he says, you know, Michael, my ex-wife and Nicky Sticks went to the same rehab.
Sticks.
Nicky Sticks? Okay, Nick's Sticks, whatever, who cares, right? I loved it because it was kind of adorable, you know. I love the guy. I think it's great. He's a funny dude, and he laughs at himself, and you know But I was like all these weird situations where I end up apart from introducing Bruce Springsteen to the Hells Angels vice president in New York City, and Aerosmith, jamming with Aerosmith, Steven Tyler called me out of the blue, playing sax on at Les Paul's 75th birthday at the Hard Rock Cafe in New York, no less, in '91, playing sax solo on Big 10-inch record.
Yeah,
and that was cool, and I actually had a DVD of that. I never showed it to anybody or given it to anybody, of course, except myself. I had a VHS copy which I transferred onto DVD and a machine that does that before the Hollywood Vampires gig in Helsinki in 2017 or was it 2017? I thought it was. I think it was when Joe Perry and Alice Cooper and Johnny Depp, that Hollywood Vampires. And playing in Helsinki, we opened up for them, and it was almost to the day. It was June 12th that the show was, and it was this Les Paul gig was in '91. It's like June 10th. I think the gig was June 10th, and I think it was June 12th that the Aerosmith show had happened in 1991. And it's like, how many years was that before? It was almost to the day, the anniversary of that, my featuring with Aerosmith. And I never met those guys much afterwards. I mean, I talked to Steven Tyler on the phone afterwards for a while, but then I moved out of New York. I lost touch with him. I lost touch with, a lot of people after I left. So I had the DVD to give to Joe Perry. This is almost to the day he was just that if he had never seen it. I don't know if he cared, but he was happy to get it, and
I'm sure he was. I'm sure he was. Yeah.
It's a fun thing. That actually, the Tommy Hendrickson had planned for me to go up and do Ace of Spades and play harp on the jack. They were playing the jack, but then apparently he said, the management has said that on that tour they will have no guests. That was a rule.
Oh,
so
okay.
Anyway, I was okay. Yeah, so I didn't go up, but I was watching the show and I saw the stage, and then Johnny Depp spotted me. It's like, hey, Michael Monroe, man, I've been following your career for years, man. It's like, really big respect. I was like, wow, he was such a nice guy, and he
is a lovely guy.
Me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Alice came from behind. And said, where is he? Come on! Then they pulled me up on stage for Schools Out. In the end, they pulled me up on stage anyway. So that was great. Johnny Depp, what a nice guy.
Very nice.
And, yeah, but I mean, I like where I am. I've had a good career, regardless. I may not be the biggest name in the world, but maybe I still have a good 20 years or something. I hope.
Of course. I think that's the beautiful thing about it. I think you really have had a hell of a story, and the story continues. And I think that, where I've really taken up a bunch of your time, but I'm excited to see what comes next. I know there's another record happening at some point, so that'll be.
Yeah, I don't mind. Yeah, I don't mind the time because I'm happy to share my story. It's not told too often. And then, I'm thinking, this is not taking my time. This is what I live for. And great talking to you. First of all, it's great to see you. I miss you.
You too. I know. It's been way too long. And I'm hoping that we can, I'm hoping we can play shows even in our backyards. But I'm hoping that eventually we'll be able to get on planes and go travel the world a bit.
Yeah. Did you hear the new Cheap Trick song?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Fantastic. Tom Pearson. I went to play harp with them a couple of years ago in London when they were touring with Def Leppard. They played in just before Christmas in London. I played harp on a Run Rudolph Run. That was a great feather in my cap.
Great.
Listen, they're making a movie. Also, there's a movie being made which started some years ago, but the guy wasn't up to it who was doing it. But I got the perfect guy to do it. We restarted it this summer, and next couple of years it's going to be finished. Hopefully by 2022 should be finished. The whole story of my life, pretty much, based on around the New York 10 years in New York. That culminates, but starts with the beginning of Hanoi and really like a documentary of my life and me.
Wow.
So that's in the works, but it's the kind of thing you only make once in your life. So I want to make sure it's a really. I mean, after that, I want to make a documentary first. Then people will say, "Oh, what about making a movie with actors?" And it's always kind of corny when people act somebody, And but after the documentary is made, then I don't care anymore. But I want to make it as great as possible. And then the guy who's making it is like looking at it more like because it's a fascinating story, even if I say so myself. And as you can see, like a story about me chopping wood with a broken ankle and shoveling snow and in the middle of nowhere in the dark and cold in Finland when people think I'm living the high life, that's, to me, it's just like the reality of life, my life story, and it requires character, if I may say myself. But like there's a couple of great. I love the Who movie, The Kids Are All Right. That's one of my favorite documentaries, and Super Duper Alice Cooper. Super duper Alice Cooper, great. But like there's a movie about Diego Maradona, the football player. That movie about him, it's like a great story, and that Formula driver Senna. Have you seen that movie?
No, I have not.
That even if you're not into Formula cars or anything, that is a great. It's really the story is fascinating, and even if you're not into football, you like that Diego Maradona story. I'm not comparing myself to them, but saying that the way the story is told. It's not like, okay, and then he did this, and then he did that, and then all these famous people know him, and then, they, of course, I want to have, when we already interviewed Slash and Duff and they, Chris Shiflett for the original version, but we're going to now start making a new, start over, and make it more like the story, make it a movie, documentary movie. It's not only about like, all my accomplishments, or but of course it's great to have all these cool, great names, you know, say things about me that describe my character, but you know, really make it a, you know, a fascinating story. So people who would not give a shit about me or even rock and roll would be interested in watching. So that's in the works now for that working in the next couple of years.
That's so awesome.
So,
I think it's high time. I think it's high time that happens. So I love you. You know what a fan I am, and I'll see you as soon as I can see you. Hopefully.
I hope so. I really hope so, as soon as possible. But let's keep in touch and let's talk. You know, I got WhatsApp. I got you there. I call you sometime. Is that okay? I like talking on the phone.
Call me all the time. And please say hi to the missus for me.
I will. Thank you. And same to you and your loved ones and your. I see your guitars. So you got a double bass back there, man.
Those are my loved ones. These are some of my loved ones.
Well, let me show you this. Look at that. Ain't that a little honey?
Ooh, that's nice. I've got a Firebird over there. Right.
But it's got my name in pearl inlays.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful. That's beautiful. That's great. And the star. You have to have the star. I love it. That's fantastic. That's beautiful.
Yeah. That's one of my favorites. All right. I love you, man. Thank you so much for having me on it. Thanks for everybody watching.
Anytime, man.
I mean, you can edit this whatever the way you want it. But let me know when it's going to be on and
I will.
I can share it with people on Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff.
You got it, brother. I love you. Take care.
I love you soon. All my love.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now. Bye.